versus those that are heavily resourced, and I'm thinking like media houses, for instance, people that have the ability to turn it around very quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the good news is that it doesn't matter whether you're, amateur podcaster or whether you're a professional media house. It's actually quite easy to be inclusive. And the wonderful thing about it is that you're actually benefiting everyone, not just people with hearing difficulties. There are simple technologies like live captioning that has really come to the forefront during COVID. That's really so good. Sometimes free, but you could also get, really affordable subscriptions. They just provide captions for people. They can also do transcripts, live transcripts, or transcripts that you upload with your podcast. And these things are really easy to incorporate, and it changes the accessibility and inclusivity of a podcast tremendously. I also think, for more expensive options, maybe media houses, there's also the option for the deaf community to include a sign language interpretation of sorts. Those kind of things are more expensive. But the simple inclusivity elements like live transcripts and captions are really quite easy to incorporate.
Absolutely. Because I really was interested in sort of the technical steps of this. And I think you've given us some ideas for folks to consider. And would it be an easy sort of intake or uptake to do things like transcripts on podcasts, and maybe even I read something about how the sound is also designed on podcasts, like the technicalities around the sound design. Is that something that also is part of this conversation?
Yes, exactly. I think the sound design, it's about an awareness that, when we put together our podcast, we put in music and we put all kinds of background sounds. It's important to keep in mind that that shouldn't interfere with the understandability of our message and our speech. People with hearing difficulties find it really difficult to follow speech when there's other background noise, for example. So if you're kind of fading in a soundtrack of sorts, make sure you don't fade it in too loudly while you're speaking, and try to focus on clarity and high quality audio. In the sound design, less is really more. We want people to really understand. What we've also found, with research, is that even listeners without hearing difficulties appreciate the fact when the speech is really clear and easy to follow. So again, I think, making these adjustments and changes is actually benefiting the entire audience for podcasters.
Absolutely. 1.5, over 1.5 billion people worldwide affected by some form of hearing loss.
Exactly. So those are the World Health Organization estimates. 1 in 5 people currently living with some degree of hearing loss. That number is actually increasing because of the aging population, but also due to exposure to loud sound. And it's estimated that by 2050, it'll be 1 in every 4 people.
Wow. Quite interesting. I think you've definitely given ourselves as a media house and a lot of our listeners as well who might be, dabbling with podcasts as much as there's now running commentary around defunding podcasts. But you've definitely, I think, given folks something to think on and to chew on when it comes to inclusivity and accessibility to podcasting. Let's also touch a little bit about some of the interesting work. I've spoken to, your colleagues from the University of Pretoria now over this month, and I've realized that University of Pretoria is moving quite consciously and deliberately around, inclusivity and accessibility for their students that are hearing impaired.
Yes, exactly. I think as a university, we also realize that it's not just the world out there. It's actually the students that are coming to our classrooms who are needing the assistance and the support to really make the most of their time at a tertiary institution. So that's an important drive. I think the fact that, our Department of Audiology is also a World Health Organization collaborating center, the only one on the African continent, also, puts a responsibility on us to really pioneer, but also ensure that we raise awareness and advocate for individuals with hearing loss outside of the institution, in South Africa, throughout Africa, but also particularly for our students.
Absolutely. Talk to us a little bit as well about some of the technologies that you guys have incorporated within your lecture rooms.
Yes, so in lecture rooms, I mean, I think this is an ongoing process where we want to make sure that the classroom acoustics are appropriate. So there's a lot you can do just by design, by putting in panels that absorb acoustic energy so that you don't have so much reverberation. So those are on the kind of constructing and technical side. But we're also including accessibility options for people who have hearing aids, for example, attending classes, loop systems where, you can actually link up your hearing aid to the system and directly hear the lecturers. So that's another strategy. But then also, making sure that the notes, again, the whole idea of transcripts, recording of lectures, so that student can also do some self-learning afterwards and access the information really easily.
Wow, incredible. It sounds to me that the work that you guys are doing there definitely is placing you all in a very unique position moving into the future. Certainly if I was a parent and I had a child of tertiary going years who was looking at a varsity that would cater to all their needs, I think definitely the University of Pretoria is a place that I'd be casting my eye on. Prof, we appreciate the time with you this afternoon and, of course, for illuminating us around this conversation. That was Professor David Swanepoel, a researcher and lecturer with the Department of Speech Language Pathology and Audiology at the University of Pretoria, talking around podcasts and, of course, just making us aware that they should be made more accessible for people with hearing difficulties. And from everything that the prof said today, it didn't sound like it's a tall ask at all. Just a few technologies that are readily available, of course, to incorporate from the very beginning stages of your podcasts. Maybe think around things like transcripts as well as sound design and other things that would just make it a little bit easier for the deaf community to be in conversation and community with you through your podcast. The show rolls on as we get ready for our next conversation, but our lines are open on 061-410-4107. That's our WhatsApp line, in 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on if you want to share your thoughts perhaps on the great work that's been done at the University of Pretoria, or you also want to make your observations on, some of the pointers that the prof brings up around podcasts, or maybe you just want to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek this morning and weigh in on whether or not podcasts should be defunded. There is a movement. If you follow social media, there's a group of people that I think are growing readily more tired, especially old practitioners, old media practitioners and communicators and marketers, and they're increasingly becoming more and more tired with just how accessible and easy the barriers of entry for an amateur podcast are, and the content at times for a large amount of podcasts, maybe not quite the content that people are looking for, and so they're having to weed through everything else in order to get to really the good content podcasts out there, and people are just saying, let's defund podcasts altogether. But there's a space for podcasts. I'm saying that in jest, by the way. There is a space for podcasts, absolutely. I think they've democratized by and large communications, and they just managed to do the thing so well. So it's just about finding the one that works for you. Just the one that works. No, I'm not saying that they must defund them. I work with a bunch of young producers, and so because they enjoy all the ones that are more salacious and scandalous, and where they can catch up on their celebrity gossip and juice, and so they don't want them to go anywhere. I'm just saying it's out there, but I'm not saying that they should be. I'm just saying that the call is out there. 086-000-2032, 061-410-4107. Let's take a quick break. Madupi is standing by with the headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge, and a very good afternoon In your headlines at 1:30, government says the procurement of renewable energy from independent power producers will prioritize energy affordability. Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee has criticized the mass murder in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape over the weekend, with the death toll rising to 18 after one of the victims died in hospital. And for the first time since the Second World War, a far-right political party has come out tops in Austria's general election. I'll be back with the full news update at 2.
Ngaba Mabece on SAFM.
I mean, we're shining the spotlight on road carnages and the number of children who die in accidents.
It is a very, very necessary conversation to have. Our children are extremely vulnerable in traffic, and every day between 7 and 8 children die on our roads as pedestrians, and it doesn't make the headlines, it doesn't make the news. Even Nelson Mandela's own grandchild died in a car crash.
Yeah, that's right. On the opening of the World Cup in 2010. Yep.
His son died in a crash.
Who?
Nelson Mandela's son.
Uthembekile, that's right.
Many years ago, he was in jail. He wasn't allowed to go to the funeral, if I remember correctly.
That's true.
So nobody is excluded from being a victim of a road crash.
Peggy Mars, founder of Wheel Well.
Tuesday Takeover on The Viewpoint. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Listen, just listening to Modupi's headline news, that story coming out of Lusikisiki is, it's just heartbreaking, completely heartbreaking. I was, as we all do in the mornings, you follow all the 24-hour news channels and you keep hopping. And there's been some developments, because initially it was thought that the entire family and the extended family that was on the same property over the weekend was completely wiped out. But it seems like there's been some surviving members of the family, including a grandmother who hid for cover. And thankfully, that 2-month-old baby who overnight was literally trapped underneath their mother's body, because when their mom was shot to death, she fell on the child. That 2-month-old baby, as of reports this morning, is stable now in hospital. Just the trauma of it, right? It's just the trauma of it. It brings the conversation around gun violence in this country and, accessibility to guns and the amount of illegal guns that we have roaming around in our communities. It really is one that must be had, because there's so much to be done there from all angles. Anyway, as we shift the focus a little bit and continue on a different track, we're looking at potentially opportunities for you or someone in your family. ShopRite Group is offering bursaries for students, and we've got Ulungile Koti, who is the Senior Early Careers Talent Specialist at ShopRite, to tell us a bit more about this. And they're looking for students that are enrolled in a whole variety of studies, and we'll find out more. How are you doing this afternoon, Lungile?
I'm doing very well, Bridget. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming through. I love this. I love the initiative. ShopRite Group is inviting all high-achieving students with a passion for retail to apply for your comprehensive bursary program. Tell us a bit more about the bursary program, and also, is it something that was always there and we were just not aware?
Sure. Actually, we started this bursary program in 1994, Bridget, believe it or not. And the main intention really is to attract talent into the business in different areas so that they can occupy our graduate opportunities within the business. So we select the fields quite specifically based on our talent needs. And then we create that pipeline, funding them from undergraduate studies up to honors.
Yeah.
And then after that, they've got guaranteed employment within the company.
Oh, beautiful. And now when you say that you select them in accordance to your needs, does it mean that some things remain stable, like, certain categories remain stable over the years because they speak to the basic core of the business, and then others maybe might become a bit more fluid with, passing years because the business has got to innovate and incorporate different elements and technologies and all kinds of things to keep up with the times. And so you find yourself maybe having to look at other things with a bit more vigor.
Absolutely. You got it spot on. We actually review our needs every year to see where the business is going and which areas we actually need to actually reinforce. For example, this year, for the first time, we're offering a bursary for biological and agricultural sciences. And there the need basically has been in our fresh foods department. The buyers that need to be buying the fresh foods need to be quite, qualified when it comes to agricultural products and also the processes. So then we'll look for people who actually, are in that qualification so that we can onboard them within that department. So basically every year we review. But obviously there are some fields that have been quite constant. For example, accounting. There's a constant need for CAs in the business. So we basically take on 10 trainees a year. Then within 3 years, they're signed off as CAs, and then they get deployed to different parts of the business.
Wonderful. Very, very much needed, this biological and agricultural sciences element. I'm going to be cheeky here and say that, we can't let your competitors just be the only people leading with a cold chain marketing. You know the ones I'm talking about.
I know exactly, and I'm not getting into it, Bridget.
So who is eligible to apply for this bursary? Because today's the last day. It's been open since the 1st of July. So today is like the 11th hour call out.
Correct. So basically, eligible, maybe let me start with the kind of generic eligibility. We're looking for South African citizens under the age of 27 or let me say 27 years old or younger.
Okay.
And then they need to be enrolled in the fields that I will mention.
Yeah.
One, accounting, information technology, logistics and supply chain, retail business management, biological and agricultural sciences, as well as food sciences. So if you are enrolled in those fields and you are in your first or, any other year up until honors, please do apply, and then we will basically go through the selection process.
Okay. Is it a vigorous selection process? I mean, over and above being enrolled in either one of these and meeting the citizenship requirements, I mean, does it hold me in good stead if I've done something over and above? Maybe I've started something or I'm currently innovating in something?
Maybe the main most important step obviously is just to get your foot in through your initial eligibility.
Okay.
Then we take you through psychometric assessments and then interviews.
All right.
But then when you get to the interviews, then it's just a matter of what puts you ahead of the other candidates.
Gotcha.
Depending on that field, obviously. For example, normally advise accounting students to actually fully invest into the careers that they actually want to start. If you're studying accounting, reading financial statements with different companies just as a norm should be what you do, so that it comes through, in the knowledge that you have of the different companies, not only reading it for school assignments, etc., and also understanding our business, to be familiar with what we do. And we post, all that information on our website so that you can actually get to understand who ShopRite is and how you fit in into what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And I love the element of, from studying to employment, from tuition to employment, because a lot of times bursaries will get you through the academic journey and then you're kind of on your own to, get out there and figure it out. But you guys are literally bringing your graduates into your organization. So it's guaranteed employment.
Correct.
Wonderful.
Correct. And also there are other benefits as well, Bridget. I mean, we do offer financial support, so that will be tuition as well as accommodation. As you've mentioned, the guaranteed employment when you complete your studies. Last year we introduced a grocery allowance on top of what we already offer in terms of allowances, to say there's a ShopRite card that they can use at any of our outlets to buy groceries. And we want to ensure that students don't have to worry about, these basic needs. They need to be focusing on their studies. We also offer quite a comprehensive package when it comes to psychosocial support through our wellness program, as well as student one-on-one engagements that our team gets to do with the students.
Yeah, these are the kinds of interventions when we talk corporate public interventions. These are the kind of things we're talking about, leading with your heart as an organization. Just by way of where the students go, Lungile, let's reconfirm the website for them so that they can go to the right place and drop in. They've got just the next few hours to drop in those applications.
They've got up until midnight tonight. Hopefully, the sooner the better. The website is www.shopriteholdings.co.za, and then they should look for the careers tab on the top right-hand corner. That's where they'll see all the different opportunities. So there they look for the bursary opportunity. It leads them to the application link.
Wonderful stuff. Lungile, we appreciate the time with you this afternoon. That was Lungile Koti, who is the Senior Early Careers Talent Specialist at ShopRite Group. So if you're studying at any year at one of the categories, accounting, biological sciences, information technology, logistics and supply chain, retail business management, food sciences, and agricultural sciences, you can still apply until midnight tonight. It's the closing day of their bursary program, and it sounds like a wonderful one. Accommodation, tuition, as well as grocery vouchers and other kind of support that's been offered by them any year that you are at tertiary up until honors. And when you graduate, you also get a job at ShopRite Group. It's just gone 22. Let's take a quick pause here.
Win your share of 50,000 Rand when you play Winning at Live with OneLife. Don't forget to enter on our website, safm.co.za. Stay tuned to the morning brief on SAFM. Keep your phone on loud and we might be the one to change your life. OneLife is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. OneLife, changing lives.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Did you know that 80% of South Africa's barley is sold to the beer industry? This locally sourced barley, along with other natural ingredients, play a vital role in beer production, contributing 2.2 billion rand to the country's agricultural GDP. Join South African breweries on the 3rd of October in Caledon as they delve into the state of the beer economy. SAB Brewing, a future full of cheers. South Africa, be sharp and not for sale to persons under the age of 18.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
All Alrighty, we are shifting focus just a little bit, and we're looking at the South African gaming industry that has experienced significant growth, I am told, with a compound annual growth rate of 4.7% since 2020. And to further stimulate this growth, there's been a team of collective entities in the gaming industry, collectively known as the Africa Games Consortium, that has secured 12.9 million rand funding from the National Treasure's Jobs Fund Initiative. And we've got joining us now co-founder of Africa Games Week and CEO of Renderheads. Nick Hall joins me to weave us through this conversation. How are you doing this afternoon, Nick?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Thank you so much for taking the time. So you guys say that the South African gaming industry has been steadily growing. Maybe give us, some context and some background as to where it's at now and how long it's taken to get here. Because we obviously, some of us are not in the space, but we are familiar from the peripheral of like, oh, okay, there's this niche industry that's been coming along globally, but where are we by way of the uptake?
Sure. So I think it's just important to set some kind of context that when we talk about the gaming industry, we're talking about game development. So it's the people actually making these games and kind of the services related to it, as opposed to the consumer market. And so sort of most of what we talk about is around that. How do we build our own games and that industry specifically? So we've been having active commercial game development in the country since the early 90s. But it's only in the last 15 years, really, that we've seen a kind of a major uptick. And that's because we've seen international changes in terms of distribution. Most of game development distribution has moved online. So you're going through your app stores like on Google Play or iOS. And even on the consoles and PC market, you're going through Steam or their online platforms. And this has enabled smaller development teams from places that have been historically isolated from the global ecosystem to participate more meaningfully in that global ecosystem. And that's really kind of where we've seen the boom coming from, both in South Africa but across the continent as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, continue.
So there's been a couple of like historic milestones that have kind of really happened in the last few years. The first fully owned South African IP game was produced and released on a Nintendo console for the Nintendo Switch. It was a game called Semblance, which was built by a team out in Johannesburg called Nyamakop. We've seen a major acquisition take place. I think that was last year, where an American publisher called Annapurna Interactive wholly acquired a South African game development studio called 24-Bit Games. And to say, we're starting to see a lot more interest from the global ecosystem in what is going on in Africa. And South Africa has had the benefit of, in many ways, being at the forefront of the African game development scene. And now we're starting to see a lot of activity happening in both Nigeria and Kenya, kind of following up from the successes that we've had.
Wonderful. Talk to us about, what is it that perhaps is setting apart South African game producers from their international counterparts, for instance? What is it now that suddenly people are awakening to?
So I think there's kind of two key things that relate to two different aspects of the industry. On the one hand, without development studios who are producing their own IP, they are bringing kind of a freshness and a new take on what games can be. They're building games that are telling stories from their perspective, and so that not only for local audiences are finding that refreshing and novel, but international audiences are also liking to see what these different stories can be like, and kind of they're always kind of looking for new content. So on the one hand, there haven't been that many games set in Africa or built through an African lens, and so there's a novelty there that people are enjoying. On the other side, we have really good technical talent, both from a traditional kind of IT space. If you think about game development, it's multidisciplinary. We have artists, we have programmers, we have musicians. It brings across all of the creative industries kind of together in this one wonderful melting pot. And South Africa has a strong skill set in all of those industries. And so we're able to produce high quality work, either as a work for hire or within our own producing our own games. We're in the same time zone as Europe, which is hugely beneficial for people working in the business-to-business space doing work for hire. And we can offer competitive prices for that. And so we're starting to see a lot more international development houses look at engineering and animation and music talent in South Africa because they are able to get excellent quality work for a fraction of the price that they were paying in the European markets.
Yeah. And tell us, what does this mean, for instance, for not only local players, but perhaps also by way of the local gaming economy and the potential that this now holds for the future?
So I think the big thing is that on the one hand, we're going to see more opportunity for people to actively participate in the space. One of the big things that we're trying to do as the consortium is kind of prove out that one can have a stable career in games, that it's a viable career opportunity, and so that's a very important part of what we're trying to do. I think the other thing is that it's important that we take ownership of kind of our own narrative and our own stories. And a big way that this can be done is through creative media, and games is one of the best ways of doing that. There's so many unique and interesting things that we can do. So from a local player base, we're hoping that people will be able to see more games that are reflective of their lived experience, and also, in places that they are familiar with or kind of resonate with them in a kind of significant way. But then also, say, if people are interested in game development, as we have a number of studios increasing, they become more commercially viable, there should be more opportunities for jobs in that space as well. And so we should hopefully be seeing an influx of talent and skills into the sector so we can just build more great games.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the Africa Games Consortium. Tell us some of the key players that have come together here. And of course, you've sort of teased the objective behind the consortium. Maybe we can expand a little bit more of what the plans look like for the immediate as well as the future.
So I think maybe let's start with that last question. So one of the key things that's been missing in South Africa is a form of government participation in this industry. There's been kind of some support, but it's often people or the industry trying to utilize grants or incentives that are made for other industries, and we're just we're trying to put a round peg into a square hole, and so it hasn't quite fitted. This is the first time that we have a bespoke games initiative that is for the games industry specifically, and kind of the long-term thing is to prove that we can make this work, and that then we can expand on that and hopefully get more incentives, build off the success that we're doing, so we can get a way for government to participate meaningfully in helping build this industry. So that's kind of the long-term plan.
Yeah.
In terms of the members of the consortium, we've got across different kind of sectors that are speaking to that. We have IT Think, which is an incubator, and so they're kind of working with, excuse me, we have them working with new studios coming through, training them up, making them aware of how to make how the business of games actually works, what they need to do to manage a successful studio, and kind of linking them up with the relevant stakeholders. We have an international partnership with a German and French collaboration called Spielfabrik. And one of the things that they're trying to do is that they're helping connect our local game development studios with French and German studios, and one to help get co-production in place so we can get our teams working on international productions. And obviously that's going to be a huge benefit in upskilling our developers, but then also to get them access to those European markets. And we're starting to see some success there. There's Africa Games Week, which is sort of the part that I'm involved with, and we're a business-to-business event that's been running for 8 years, and we're really there to kind of show the rest of the world what's going on in Africa, so it's not South Africa specific, and just kind of show them and make them realize the opportunity that is there to do business in Africa, in the African game development
Lovely.
space.
And I wanna set to get into Africa Games Week and everything that you guys sort of feature during that week. But before we get to that, perhaps just doubling back on sort of government and how they can come through by way of a meaningful partnership for the South African gaming industry. I mean, what would that kind of support look like, or what kind of plug-in or intervention would the industry require from government? And asking this because I know, the terms have been 4IR and AI, but it almost seems like every time they talk about it, it's quite futuristic. And you go, but we live in a 4IR world already. It's not something that's coming. So I wonder if they also have the ability to grasp the world of gaming.
So I think we've made progress in that regard,
Okay.
And I think the kind of consortium speaks to us. It has been. I've been involved in a policy level, advocating for change and kind of dealing with government for nearly 15 years now in various different forms. And I can say it takes a lot of time, but I think we're finally there, and it's interesting to see. Our biggest challenge was actually finding a department that would take ownership of us.
Yeah.
Were we Department of Trade and Industry? Were we Sports, Arts and Culture? That seems to have been settled now, or at least we have multiple portfolios that are interested in what we're doing.
Okay.
And so part of what we're doing as the consortium is we're going into that and kind of exploring who is maybe the best fit. In terms of what the support looks like, I think it's an interesting balancing act that we kind of need to go here. I think we are looking at what is happening in other jurisdictions, and that mostly takes in the form of tax rebates or development grants to help small studios and small projects kind of get off the ground. That's ultimately where we want to end up.
Yeah.
Is to be able to compete with international ecosystems. The thing that we're trying to avoid, though, is we don't want to build an industry that is dependent on those incentives. We need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. And so it's about how do we meaningfully engage this way in a sustainable way that we're not solely dependent on government to become kind of competitive in the international market. We should be able to do that by ourselves.
Gotcha.
And we've got enough for that to happen. Now, and it's just about how can now government sustainably get involved with us and kind of help us pull this forward. And to me, I think that is going to take the role of helping new studios get off the ground, give them that kind of that safety net to kind of start their businesses, because I think that's really where we can see the most support. And then in the future, once we have a large enough industry to warrant it, we can start looking at getting tax incentives and other financial instruments in place to kind of help leverage the established players and make them be able to do more with less.
Sounds like a solid plan for me. In a minute or less, Africa Games Week.
So Africa Games Week, it's happening in December. It's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of December. It'll be in Cape Town. We have international investors, publishers, and developers coming to share their knowledge. We have 25 of the 52 African countries represented at the event. We would love people who are interested in the game space to come. One thing that we're doing this year, which we're very excited about, is one of our days is being dedicated to policy. And so we're having a number of government players, not only from South Africa, but from Kenya and Nigeria as well, coming. And we will be putting them in kind of in a room with the people who have helped other jurisdictions build out their incentives and support schemes to try and see if we can move things along forward.
Wonderful. Nick Hall, we appreciate the time. Nick is the co-founder of Africa Games Week and, of course, CEO of Render Heads. Hope you got all the information. And that the Game Week, by the way, just to reiterate, is happening that first week of December in Cape Town from the 2nd. So if you have an interest in the space as a gaming developer, or distributor, or the very many things that Nick mentioned that are adjacent to the space's ecosystem, it could be a thing for you to put down on your calendar. Let's take a quick pause and then we come back. It's 2 o'clock. Madupi's coming through with the 2 o'clock news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. The top stories this hour. Minister speaks on energy affordability and Parliament response to the mass murder in Lusikisiki. A very good afternoon. Government says the procurement of renewable energy from independent power producers will prioritize energy affordability. Energy Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has gathered role players in the energy space for the inaugural Renewable Energy Seminar. Independent power producers have been calling for more grid access from Eskom as the country works to enhance the growth of the renewable energy sector. Government has proposed that IPPs also share the cost of grid expansion for more access. Ramokgopa says the IPP procurement program must be refined and accelerated.
Clearly there are challenges there. So the IPP office has been doing tremendous work. We want to address the bottlenecks and then take it to the next level. Because it's going to help us to address a number of issues. The most topical one is the affordability issue. So we know that the cost of renewables now, just solar, have come down since bid window number 1 to the last bid window, come down by 85%, about 56 cents kilowatt hour. So that's the cheapest. The wind has gone down by 75% since the first bid window. But with the storage technology that is there, we are able to get the full benefit of what renewables can offer us.
Gauteng Finance Department says the 3.8 billion rand first installment being paid to SANRAL as historical e-toad debt comes from the Provincial Revenue Fund. These are monies obtained through motor vehicle licenses, road accident fund claims, and claims from other provinces for providing treatment to their patients in Gauteng hospitals. Gauteng is expected to contribute 30% towards SANRAL's debt, while the national government covers 70%. In April this year, government switched off the e-toll gantries following public outrage and undertook to pay off SANRAL's debt for building and maintaining the road infrastructure. The department's Ncumisa Mnyani says they are looking at other revenue streams, but she would not elaborate on this during a media briefing in Joburg.
We're exploring other options in terms of, looking at what is possible. And unfortunately, at this point in time, because there is consultation that still needs to happen, whatever revenue streams you introduce into the system, I would say, some of them, it would be premature for us to be talking about them. But when the time comes, we will talk to those details when that particular stream has been properly consulted and we've got the go-ahead.
Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee has criticized the mass murder in Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape over the weekend. The death toll has risen to 18 after one of the victims died in hospital. The committee says such brutality on innocent lives cannot be tolerated in a country where the rule of law is enforced. Committee Chairperson Ian Cameron says police should take urgent and decisive action to bring the perpetrators to book.
Absolutely horrendous to think that something like this could happen in a country where we're trying to build a civilized society. We cannot expect to build a civilized society if criminals like these are on the loose. And obviously we welcome the resources that the police have pushed forward to assist in this investigation. That being said, it's important that we create capacity in the long term to not only prevent these kinds of crimes, but that we make sure that we infiltrate the groups that make themselves guilty of these types of crimes.
The Weather Service says no snow has been recorded over the Drakensberg overnight, with light rain and drizzle falling over mostly the coastal areas of KZN since yesterday. It says the biggest rainfall recorded in the province overnight is 16 millimeters at Mount Edgecombe in the Durban metro. A level 1 warning for rain is in place for rainfall which may have a minor impact, like slippery roads, muddy gravel roads and flooded low-lying bridges. Weather forecaster Ntantlas Tole says there's an 80% chance of rain over the coastal areas today, with a 60 to 30% chance of rain elsewhere in the province.
Over the southeastern parts, it's showers and rain, a combination of both. Some places, like Verulam, from there in the morning, and it was some light rain, and because of these cellular clouds that keep coming in from the ocean, here and there we keep getting some showers of rain. Otherwise, the other areas of the province, it's light rain and drizzle mostly.
And for the first time since the Second World War, a far-right political party has come out tops in Austria's general election. The Freedom Party, led by Herbert Kickl, secured just under 29% of the vote, but it did not secure the majority needed to form a government. Lucas Mandel is a member of the European Parliament with Austria's centre-right People's Party.
Austria will prove in the weeks and months ahead that it actually is a stable democratic republic, a democratic system. The federal president is democratically elected, and to form a government and to hold this government, to keep it up, you would need a majority in the federal parliament, and there are other parties elected and many members elected who would not support the Freedom Party.
The top story at 2 o'clock, government says the procurement of renewable energy from independent power producers will prioritize energy affordability. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemele.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today by simply SMSing CAR to 43187. Looking for an insurance designed for older cars with Outsurance Essential? A 57-year-old woman pays only 287 rand a month for her 2009 grey Toyota Yaris T3 and gets up to 1 million rand liability cover. That means that if you cause an accident, the other car will be covered up to 1 million rand. Get Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars that are older than 5 years and valued at less than 125,000 rand. It's time to switch and save. Simply SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187 today. Outsurance is a licensed FSP and T's and C's do apply.
Need a loan? Pay for what you need when you need it with a personal loan from Nedbank. And if you open a MyGoals Plus or MyGoals Premium account, you could enjoy 200 Rand cash back every month for the duration of your loan. That's 200 Rand every month to buy extra groceries or save for a rainy day. Visit nedbank.co.za and join the bank that's best for your loans. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. You love drama? Then step into the world of Luther as he cracks down on criminals terrorizing the streets of London Monday to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Top Gear will have you falling in love and rolling in laughter as Jeremy Clarkson and his team take you on an automotive journey like no other, Monday to Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
up, hey, being a song when you go on tone, cutting and you don't be in swagger, see, hey, yeah, you got, can you go, easy, hey, you're not you because I got cool, hey, girl, tell me where you from, I wanna know your name, I wanna get with you, baby. Sandy born and fun and now, and then, Jengawe, Indobete, Yamazana, Domem Yamazana, Sandy born and fun and now, and then, Jengawe, Indobete, Yamazana, Derum, 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 Dere, Tap, Tap, Derum, Dere, Derum, Derum, Davuxen, Tingangat, Thalengen, Eruhlaza, Sikulelwa, Indalo, Uguezami Zonizala, oh, Billy Pupo, baby, be fantasy, be fantasy, be fantasy, be fantasy, yeah. Zandi Bonne Fana Nawe, Hentle, Jengawe, Indobete, Nyamazana, Domem Nyamazana, Zandi Bonne Fana Nawe. Down there, I'm a cheater for no test. I perform my name on the chest. Or can you go by, and say, Mantanda, when the baby's a fella, and the tata in Yanga, the Lubabis to the sound. Ulubam, Sana Luam, Bangazo, Tata, my chance, Bangazo, Fata, my guns. Don't you take my kindness for weakness? He's a la la la. Yes, we're in the sun. Ulubam,
MXO coming through on the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM on this fine Monday. I hope you're having a good one. I know that SA Weather Services has got some alerts throughout the country. I think KZN being one of the regions with alerts for today, tomorrow, some part in the beginning of the week for some bad weather. But we're experiencing, I guess, for most purposes, a wonderful summer's day. You know, the sun is out, it's shining, it's really, really hot out there. It will be lovely, though, because we also are on alert by way of water. If I'm not mistaken, we're on a level 1 water warning in Gauteng. So as much as we are enjoying fine, clear, warm weather, you know, we need a bit of rain. We need more than a little bit of rain in all the right places. But we'll actually touch base. I think we'll touch base on that conversation before we wrap up the show. For now, though, we are catching up with Talita van Wyk, who's the head of programs at the Independent Institute of Education. So we know the importance of, you know, a high IQ, high intelligent quotient is often seen as a critical indicator of potential personal and professional success. But what other factors could be considered here? Social IQ and cultural IQ now being put there in the mix as additional factors when hiring and promoting candidates. And we're going to unpack this because I actually want to find out, how do you even measure all of that? How are you doing, Talita? Are you good?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm very well. Thank you. And yourself?
I am great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I almost feel like the list of cues is growing with each era and decade. Or is it maybe just, my insecurities coming to play?
No, no, it's definitely increasing. But Bridget, the interesting thing is that all these have actually come quite for a long time. Like social questions, even coming from the 1900s, cultural questions. None of these are really as recent. But I think the more we become aware of, how we interact socially, how we interact with different cultures, especially in a country like South Africa, we just become more aware of these things, and it becomes to come more to the forefront. So there's definitely more, and it seems like there's more coming up and popping up. I heard the other day just of another one called PQ, which stands for different things as well. Physical cohesion, some use it as political cohesion. So really interesting times in terms of the different intelligences and cohesions that we have.
Absolutely. And I mean, it also speaks to, I guess, our evolutions as society, maybe, and the different things that we hold of as important, both personal and professional.
Absolutely. And I think, in the workplace specifically, when we also look at curriculum design in terms of the programs we offer within universities or in our higher education, it becomes really important. And as, workplaces evolve and things change within the workplace, these things do come to the forefront, and they change on a daily basis almost. And it's for us to really try and keep up with all these different things and make sure we've got the necessary skills and stay up to date with it to be able to become the most efficient possible within the workplace wherever we go.
Absolutely. Talita, let's also, I guess, maybe run down to the basics of, the different IQs, whether we're speaking, intelligent quotients or social or cultural. What elements do they all sort of consider as part of their buckets?
So there's such interconnectedness between these various cohesions or intelligences. And whether we're speaking about the IQ, whether we're speaking about the adaptability quotient or the emotional quotient or intelligence, as a lot of people are aware of these days, but also then when we look at the social quotient and the cultural quotient, there's quite a few things that are interlinked or interconnected between these. And I think something that's really important is self-awareness. Between all of them. Communication comes to the forefront within all of them. Relationships, how we set up those relationships in terms of networking. But those are, for me, really the basic things that come out in all of them, and that you become more aware of as you look at them. But as I say, they're so interlinked and so interconnected. And it's not something that you can, like an IQ, for example, where you have a certain number or where you're at a certain level. All of these can be improved, even your IQ. All of these can be, grow. You can grow them over the years as we continually learn. And I think that's the important thing with all these questions, is to stay open for learning, stay open-minded, to grow, be able to grow and develop all of them more and more as we evolve over the years.
For some of us, I guess it's easier to just focus on the IQ of things, right? Because it almost seems like that's something within your power and your control. And
Sure.
EQ, for instance, the emotional element is one that's always been up for debate, I find, in different circles. Around
Yes.
our ability to sort of navigate ourselves as individuals and collectives around that. Then you add the elements now of SQ and CQ in the context of the world that we are currently in. Those
Yes.
almost seem like they fly out the window, and yet they are now becoming the significant differentiators, you say, in employment arenas.
For sure. And you know what I found, even personally, after, especially, and I don't necessarily want to talk about COVID, but if we look at what we've gone through the pandemic, and how we had to almost force ourselves to socially engage again after that. So I think that's one of the reasons why social cohesion is coming so much to the forefront again, just to make people more aware of how to social, how do we network again, because we've been so secluded from everyone, and working from home these days, you don't necessarily interact with people on a daily basis in the workplace. If you're going to be working from home 5 days a week, you kind of basically focusing on what you do, getting things done, and basically talking with people just online. But we do need that social interaction. And it's really our ability to be able to navigate those social environments, because even when we change workplaces, we need to be able to adapt. And that's one of the reasons why I always say they are so interconnected, because that for me links again to our adaptability cohesion then. For us to be able to navigate those social environments, to navigate the cultural environments we engage ourselves in, we need to be able to adapt, which links then to, like I say, our AQ again. But we need to be able to, in our social cohesion, to build those relationships, to be able to maintain relationships, but also understand different social norms and dynamics, which also once again connect with our cultural cohesion, where we need to understand the different cultural norms and dynamics. In one culture, a certain gesture might mean something completely different than in another culture. And what is extremely important, and I was in a meeting earlier today where they also mentioned the importance of not just being able to understand the cultures we're working with within the workplace or dealing with on a daily basis. We also need to be able to listen and understand and adapt to those different cultural environments, because maybe in my culture I can change something, I can do something completely different, and I can adapt to another culture where I find they do something in a better way than what I'm currently doing it. So it's really being able to adapt and really understand by listening, networking, and really being open and learning on a daily basis. But in the workplace, because we're dealing on a daily basis with so many different social contexts with different cultures, it really is important and becoming more to the forefront for people to learn those skills, to grow those skills. And there's various ways and means to do that.
Now, the other interesting, sort of observation as you're talking, and I'm reflecting within my personal context, and my friends who sit in executive positions in various sectors, and the sort of constant gossip amongst ourselves is how, because it is gossip, it's how, for instance, Gen Z by and large are moving and navigating through professional spaces. And when you talk about, social quotients and cultural quotients, there's almost, I'm picking up a bit of a friction between millennials and not old millennials in their 40s and Gen Z, and how they are approaching this. Because the complaint I seem to hear from executives who have to sit in meetings where candidates and applicants are being vetted for potential position, promotion, consideration, whatever. It's just how the Gen Z is missing exactly that social and cultural adaptability. And yet, weirdly enough, they also are the generation of inclusivity and the generation of, they've got all the buzzwords, but it seems like they're missing them in action.
Yes. And I'm thinking it's something that they don't necessarily were taught or experienced by growing up. I think, as millennials and as Gen X, we were exposed to those things. We had to deal with different social contexts and different situations. If we look at Gen Z, yes, they were exposed to the diversification and inclusiveness and all of that. But it's almost they don't have, although they get exposed to so many things through media and through COVID, but it's as if they weren't in situations where they could actually practice it necessarily. It's almost as if everything they've done is via a screen, where we had to do it physically. We had to socially play outside with other children, and learn those skills to interact with one another. Now you get a generation who's interacting via a screen, but they don't necessarily have the physical contact with people, having that sit down conversation and really listen to, but how do you guys do it in your culture? What are the food that you love and that represents your culture? How do you as a culture interact with one another, let's say when you get married? There's none of those conversations I find happening anymore. And there's been a very recent article where they're actually talking about the Gen Zs being fired in workplaces these days because they don't have the professionalism, as you mentioned earlier. They don't have the skills and they don't have the patience to listen. They just want to get things done and get on with the next thing, but they don't. And I think this is something in the workplace where, and I've spoken about this in a conversation the other day, where we need to also look at the generations within the workplace, because we can learn so much from one another between the different generations. And I think if I look at the Gen Z, they're not necessarily as open as a millennial, for example, listening and sitting with a baby boomer, learning from the skills and the experience that they've gone through, where a baby boomer or a millennial can sit with a Gen Z to learn more about tech, and learning to work with different apps and different types of technologies, and AI, because that's something they're more familiar with and that they work with on a daily basis. So I think there's so much scope for learning from one another in the workplace when it comes to the various generations, and mentorship programs within workplaces. I mean, we can touch on so many topics here, but I think that there's a gap there, is learning from one another within the workplace and really mentoring the Gen Zs as well, but also empowering them by learning from them with the skills and the things they're good at.
Listen, you make such a salient point when you say, perhaps it's the practice of these skills that is missing, because you're right, they grew up in a completely different world. A conversation for another day now, as we raise Gen Alpha, the little peewees and who are completely immersed in this world and have to grow up as adults who then socialize and but just as a parting shot, as we wrap it up, because I think this speaks to also what you highlight in your article about the developing of these intelligences, because it is in us. It's just a practice muscle.
100%. And you know what, a lot of these things I think already do subconsciously. We don't necessarily realize it. And, in some of the higher education programs, it's built in, let's say, for example, a type of assessment where students learn it through maybe doing a group project within different cultures, and just by that interaction they are growing that and working on that muscle. But yes, you're absolutely right that these can be taught, it can be learned, it can be developed. And if I may just maybe as a wrap up mention a few examples for the social cohesion, it's really networking. Just from a personal perspective, after COVID, what I did is went onto LinkedIn and really started networking by just connecting with different people whose we're talking about interesting topics and that touch on my interest. Networking and talking up to people, just via LinkedIn or going to community programs, going to joining professional groups and engaging with people on that level as well. One can, develop your relationship management skills by really working on resolving conflicts, maintaining positive relationships just by regularly communicating and supporting one another in the workplace, but also in a personal level. Just a few examples for cultural cohesion is to be mindful of those cultural differences, avoid making assumptions. And it comes back to communication, to really listen and be open to learning in that space as well, but showing the respect, the openness to those various cultural expressions.
Absolutely.
One can adapt the behavior and the communication style to fit into the different cultural context that we find ourselves in. So it's that flexibility, adaptability that all interconnect.
Talita, we have to wrap it there, but I think we've wrapped it on a good note. That was Talita van Wyk, Head of Programs at the Independent Institute of Education, because being smart is just not enough to land you a job in South Africa. By way of a reminder, by the way, Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your very own panel beater. SMS card to 43187 now.
A very good afternoon. With the news headlines, the Gauteng government says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded. The government says the procurement of renewable energy from independent power producers will prioritize energy affordability. And in a defense response, Hezbollah's deputy leader Naim Qassem has insisted that the group is ready if Israel decides to invade Lebanon. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 3.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
It is just gone 2:30 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. We're going to get into our kids' programming now, and this should be great, right? Because you guys are on holiday, as far as I understand. Let's get into Kids Corner.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello everyone, I'm Mushfiqa Talib. My favorite thing about the season spring is that nature and animals come alive again, and that all the flowers and trees have color. A few animals born in this season are foxes, lambs, butterflies, bees, deers, and bats. I love to watch how flowers start growing again, especially the ones I have in my garden, since they look the best in spring. When the weather starts to get warmer, I always get excited because I know that I'll be able to go out more and I won't have to worry about the rain, and also that it's not too hot or too cold in spring. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Hi guys, my name is Yolanda Mzobe. I am 10 years old. Today I will be talking about what is my favorite thing about spring. The animals that are born in spring are cows, sheep, rabbits, pigs, and foxes. The colors that I like to see growing on spring is flowers that are color pink. When the weather starts to get warmer, I feel excited because there are nice clothes to wear, such as shorts and vests. The fun activities I enjoy during springs is going on swimming pools, pouring ourselves with water, and there are many activities to do. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Precious Ziba from Brixton Primary School, and today I'll be talking about the spring season. My favorite thing about spring is that flowers bloom and it is colorful. Nature is always mostly beautiful in spring, and I would recommend it because I love nature. And I'm not actually sure of animals that are born in spring, but then the flowers that I would love to see and I most of the time see is jasmines, violets, daisies, and roses. And sometimes the weather feels a bit chilly, like now, and then sometimes it's a bit warmer and sometimes a little bit hot. My favorite activities of doing during spring is like pouring each other with water, going out for swimming, having smoothies and things like those. Thank you.
Good day, my name is Monet Angel Nengobera. My favorite thing to do in winter is watching flowers bloom and feeling the warmer weather because it excites me knowing that I'm returning to summer. Animals that are born in spring are lambs, chicks, cows, and bunnies. My favorite flowers to watch in winter, or favorite flowers that I like to watch blooming, are tulips and flowers. How I feel when the weather gets warm, I feel happy, I feel energetic, and I feel excited. My favorite activities to do, or activities that can be done in spring, is playing outdoors, gardening, having picnics, going to swim, flying kites, and playing in the streets. Thank you and have a lovely day, and let us learn more about spring.
My name is Levanzi Shangwane. I think my favorite thing about spring is how it looks. Before spring, we have winter, and winter is very gloomy, very cloudy. The plants don't look alive. It's just very dull and boring. But then in spring, everything blooms. It just turns green. The flowers begin to bloom. I just love how colorful it makes the world. And yeah, I love the rain as well, because rain is very, very, very calming. I actually found this out right now today, that animals such as salamanders, the monarch butterfly, swallows, chipmunks, herons, and fox are actually all born in spring. I actually didn't know that. Then, flowers that actually bloom in spring are flowers like the daffodil, the creeping phlox, the crocus, the tulip, the snowdrop, and the primrose. And there are many, many, many more. I think when the weather starts to get warmer, I start to get excited. Like, it's just so amazing. I get so excited. Some fun activities that I enjoy doing in spring are swimming sometimes, because spring is also a very confusing season, because it rains and then it can be hot and then it can be cold. So it's like up and down. But I really enjoy swimming when the weather permits. I like going out. I like eating cold foods like ice cream. But honestly, I don't have a season for ice cream. I eat it any time. But yeah, I love spring, and I hope we can have a beautiful spring this year.
Hello friends, and happy Monday. Today, let's dive into the wonderful season we're experiencing, spring. In South Africa, spring is a vibrant and enchanting time that starts in September and continues through November. As the chilly winter fades away, the weather begins to warm up and the days grow longer, with the sun shining brightly. It's the perfect opportunity to step outside and embrace the beauty of nature. Both people and animals emerge to enjoy the fresh air and witness the delightful changes that spring brings. One of the most delightful aspects of spring is the arrival of many baby animals. If you visit farms or nature reserves, you might spot adorable lambs, calves, and foals frolicking about. These little ones are full of energy as they explore their surroundings, adding to the joy of the season. Meanwhile, birds are busy building their nests, hatching their eggs, filling the air with their cheerful chirps. Spring is also a time when flowers burst into bloom, painting the fields and gardens with vibrant colors. You'll find stunning flowers like lilies and the iconic protea, South Africa's national flower. In areas like Namakwa Land, you can witness breathtaking landscapes covered in a blanket of colorful wildflowers, creating truly awe-inspiring sights. There are so many enjoyable activities to partake in during spring. You can go hiking, have a lovely picnic with your family, or even fly kites in the gentle breeze. It's a fantastic time to visit parks and gardens. Take nature walks, or play sports outdoors with friends. The warm and inviting weather makes being outside a joy. Spring in South Africa is a magical time filled with new life, vibrant colors, and endless fun. The animals, flowers, and activities bring a sense of happiness and excitement after the colder months. It's the perfect season to explore nature and appreciate the beauty that surrounds us.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Have you recently migrated to the new TV licenses payment website? Make sure your account stays active by registering again or resetting your password. Don't miss out on all the fantastic new features our brand new website offers. Get registered today and stay connected with us. With the new website, get your payments done quickly and hassle-free with a wide range of services. So make sure you register to take advantage of all the great client features. Visit www.tvlic.co.za today. TV licenses. Do it for the things that matter.
The wait is finally over, and we can safely say that Tropica Island of Treasure is back to serve you some really great entertainment. Tune into S3 from the 28th of September to cheer on the 7 teams who will be vying to win a shared prize of 1 million rand, a brand new car each, and become the champions of Tropica Island of Treasure Season 11. Fancy 50,000 bucks? Predict the champions of Tropica Island of Treasure, and you might be sipping that cold, refreshing Tropica all the way to the bank. Follow at MyTropica and at SABC3 for more information. Channel your inner champion with Tropica Island of Treasure. Starts Saturday the 28th of September at 6:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
As we're preparing to actually wrap up the show, how quickly this Monday has flown, right? Well, at least from our end, maybe on your end, it's still slugging away. Tomorrow, we welcome in October, and that marks 3 months until 2024 is done and dusted. And there are people who are still sort of awakening from their slumber, at this juncture of life. But it's okay. Time just seems to move faster. And sometimes I wonder if at the time of our parents, the baby boomers, was time moving this fast as well? I said to someone at the gym the other day that it almost seemed as though when we were younger, it took forever to get to, 18 matric. And I think if you speak to any young member of the family right now, they'll tell you it seems like it takes forever to get to 18. be out of the house, be at varsity, doing your own thing, accounting somewhat to yourself because you're on campus, you're away from home. But then once you get into the real world of paying bills, it's like time just gallops and gallops and gallops. And you look back every year and you go, wait. I'm still trying to catch up to my goals of 2023. Why are we ending 2024? But the year is gone. Anyway, it's amazing how time, the concept of time actually works. We're going to get into our last conversation now with James Tlabane, who is the professional officer at NRF. Is it NRF SATR? But James, the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement. There we go. Sometimes they think I know these acronyms and I don't. How are you doing, James? Are you good?
I'm good, thanks. And how are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much for taking the time. So the National Science Week 2024 is fast upon us. But, let's get into, firstly, before we even get into that, you had your launch about 2 days ago. Let's get into, the state of science, innovation, technology in South Africa. Are we keeping up with, our other counterparts, the likes of the Kenyas, the likes of the Nigerias, who are doing phenomenal things in these spaces by way of the African context?
Yes, I think we're in that space we are. I wouldn't say we've achieved what we would have loved to, but yes, we are moving. We are moving.
We are moving. So where would you say we are lacking? James? Oh, and I'm not too sure. I think the line just unexpectedly dropped on us there with James. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back as we try and get him back on the line.
The Meeting Point. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Praveen has really helped us understand what has become to be known as the phenomenon of state capture. He initiated this group of academics who produced the first set of academic material on what we understood then to be state capture under the title of Connecting the Dots, which I think enables South Africans for the first time to understand the various issues that they were really trying to comprehend and make sense of. And in that way, I think, created the basis for the public challenge to state capture as it became known. Both within the ANC, but also more within the public domain.
Nishan Bolton, the Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation.
The Meeting Point on SAFM. You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Hopefully we've managed to get James back on the line and to continue our conversation around the National Science Week. So it's kicking off today, in fact. Kicking off today and running until the 5th of October. James, you thought that your ancestors were on your side so that you didn't have to give us the critique of where we are falling short as South Africa. But
yeah, you see.
We're going to double back to that.
Yeah. Look, like I said, we are moving as the Agency for Science and Technology Advancement. We're looking at South Africa as the 9th province of the country, and the challenge that we've had it's your previously disadvantaged, your rural areas, your townships far from things. That's where the challenge is, and that's where our main focus now is to say we need to find that black child in Lusikisiki, that a black child in the outskirts of the Western Cape, in the outskirts of Limpopo and all that. So our take is to say, how do we get the most rural, the underprivileged on board? So that is where the challenge comes. But like I'm saying, we are moving, we are making strides on that.
Yeah. I mean, when we look at the continent, right, and we have other African countries that are, lesser resourced than us, with far bigger infrastructure challenges than the ones that we face as South Africa. And I'm using my words very sort of slight here, because by no means do I feel that we are the best country. So I don't want South Africans to feel like they are the best on the continent. We have plenty of our own challenges, and other people do things better. And I think to this point, like for instance, the territories that we spoke about, the Kenya, for instance, I wonder if we're talking about that not leaving a child behind in Lusikisiki, with everything that we have by way of resource, by way of connectivity, infrastructure connectivity, accessibility, why is this still an sort of that nagging challenge when we have a conversation around technology and its ability to be accessed by every South African, technology and science, and their ability to be accessed by every South African in every corner?
Yeah, you see, the issue of exposure, that becomes number one. One thing you're not exposed to, you're not likely to pursue such. Hence, I talk about such areas. Secondly, if you look at our country, I think there is a kind of a misunderstanding that we feel like somebody owes us something. We depended on somebody to do it for us. If you look at Kenya, for instance, like you indicated, Kenya is one of those countries where people are saying we can do it ourselves. You go to the street, you find somebody selling furniture on the street, not waiting for anybody to do it for you. So as we move out, we're saying we want to be role models in those outskirts, to say, look at us and dream. So our take is to go out there and say, if you see me, I'm also from such a background, you look at me and dream, to say there are careers in this line. You can follow careers in STEM, in your science, technology, engineering, mathematics and innovation. And as you expose them, as you go out there, then they're saying, a person like us can do this. It means we can do it. But without that exposure, you do not have somebody dream. What do you dream about? Because you can only dream about what we've heard or seen.
Yes,
not
makes
something
sense.
that. So basically, it's that way. I'm saying we are making strides to go out to those communities and say, hey, you can do it in that outskirt. You can do it coming from such a background.
Makes sense. Let's talk a little bit about the National Science Week that kicking off today and running till the 5th of October. The theme is living in a high-tech world. Should we be concerned?
Yes. What a theme. Yes, if you look at the countries, not even like the African countries, you look at what is happening in China, what is happening in the UK, what is happening in Spain, and all of that in terms of technology. And you look at us and saying, are we ready? Should we be concerned? The first answer is yes, we should be concerned in a positive way. We should wake up from our sleep and say, let's move with the movers. It's about time to say, without technology, without innovation, we can't make it into this world. So we're saying to South Africans, look at what is happening in our neighboring countries, what is happening in the developing world, in the developed world, the world itself. So we're saying to ourselves, look, it's about time that we can do something. What people are doing out, we can also do it. What is it that they have that we do not have?
Yeah. I get you. We have to leave it there for this afternoon, James, but we thank you for the time. That was James Tlhabane, Professional Officer with the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement. That National Science Week is happening. It kicked off today and it's running until the 5th of October. The theme is living in a high-tech world. Should we be concerned? And they had the launch just about 2 days ago at the Central University of Technology in Bloemfontein. Lots to be discussed there around technology literacy, local and global dependencies on technology, disruptive technologies also explained there. So lots on the calendar. Let's get into our last conversation now, looking at the water crises that we have in the country.
Becoming Elizabeth is the fascinating story of the early life of England's most iconic queen. With no clear heir, The death of King Henry VIII sets into motion a dangerous scramble for power. Elizabeth's fascinating and factual journey to secure the crown is filled with scheming, betrayal, and illicit relationships that threaten to bring forth her demise. At a time in which every man or woman of the court is on the wheel of fortune, which may take them to a position of great power one moment, or the executioner's block the next. Channel your inner royalty with Becoming Elizabeth, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Standard Bank Group, the biggest bank in Africa by assets, in partnership with SOAS, will host the 4th Annual Climate Summit on 1 October. This summit will host insightful discussions with various industry experts in charting Africa's course to net zero. The annual summit is one of Standard Bank's sustainability initiatives dedicated to driving growth on the African continent. Tune in to the SAFM Facebook page and be part of the conversation in shaping the future of Africa's energy transition. Brought to you by Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking.
Four dynamic design duos reimagine and reinvent 4 apartments in a century-old building nestled in the vibrant suburb of Sea Point, Cape Town. Armed with creativity, determination, and a limited budget, the duos fight against the clock to transform this grand old dame into a contemporary masterpiece, all under the critical eyes of an expert judging panel. The winning duo will claim a grand prize of 300,000 Rand, with an additional 100,000 Rand going to the fan favorite team, as voted by viewers. Channel your inner wow with My Design Rules, Sundays at 7 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are literally wrapping up the show, and we're going to have the shortest conversation known to mankind with the CEO of NIPAD Business Foundation, the host of the Strategic Water Partners Network. Peter Vandal joins me now. So some provinces in the country are heading for day zero, with leading scientists pegging the province's water crisis as a near-term climate change tipping point. Good afternoon to you, Peter. We appreciate the time. We woke up this week with all kinds of warnings specific to Gauteng this time. Level 1 water warning running until just after Easter 2025. What conversation should we be having now around the water deficit in Gauteng, in Cape Town, KZN also experiencing its own problems?
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's at the base of it is we live in a water scarce country. And then more particularly to Gauteng, we live in an area that is not necessarily built on a major water course. So with a large economy in play here, we're looking for supply from a bigger system, which they call the integrated Vaal River system. So as you can imagine, water will be about supply and demand. We are constrained in terms of what supply goes into the system, with the next expansion anticipated from Lesotho Highlands in about 2028. So as we live in a constrained supply-demand situation, we need to all understand what we're dealing with. And I think my primary answer to your question was it's up to us as citizens to understand and to get the information required for us to all make decisions and contribute to a secure water environment.
I was reading water, and the term water in conflict came up with 3 characteristics. And the first of that is that water is a trigger of conflict when the supply cannot meet the demand. But consumers, we don't come to this party because when they say to us we have a 2-pronged problem, infrastructure on the one hand and, consumer consumption and behavior, we always want to excuse our responsibility from the conversation.
Yeah, so again, like I say, it's up to us to understand. And at the Water Partners Network, a big drive is towards creating the information that's required for people to understand. So we strongly recognize that there are infrastructure improvements required to conserve the water that's going into the system and that's leaking out. But whilst that's happening, there needs to be a parallel response where consumers also have the ability to control their own destiny. So we can all do our bits and pieces, the household level, the business level, to put less pressure on the system whilst we give time for the infrastructure improvements to take place.
Absolutely. The alarm has been sounded off around our water problems in South Africa, and we've got lots of problems here. What kind of forward planning needs to now be done so that we actually don't find ourselves at ground zero, don't find ourselves in the situation that we have with Eskom?
Yeah, so the biggest driver really deals with municipalities. So we need to support municipalities on being able to provide a consistent, reliable service. On the one hand, to ensure that they are optimizing the use of the water supplied to them, but then also to ensure that they are recovering the tariffs due to them, to ensure that the entire system remains in balance. Water, at the end of the day, is meant to be self-funding. It needs to be, it needs to be as tightly run as possible, and the biggest route towards that is making sure that we have stable, well-run municipalities.
Absolutely. Peter van Dal, thank you so much for the time, CEO of NEPAD's Business Foundation. That is it from our end. Remember, as we have this conversation around the water scarcity and the looming day zeros in the country, by and large, we ourselves as consumers, every single household is responsible for how we consume water. And if you are listening to us in Gauteng, we are at a level 1 water warning right now until 2025. And I still see people watering their gardens well past 6 o'clock and doing the most unnecessary things with water, like pavings and all kinds of things. So let's play our part. It's gone 3 o'clock. John is standing by for Ashraf. That's it for myself and my team. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again.
The top stories at 3 o'clock. Motorists won't be refunded for paying e-tolls, and Hezbollah says it is ready for Israel. A very good afternoon. The Gauteng government says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded. It is addressing the media in Joburg on its plans to settle the 12.9 billion rand debt owed to roads agency Sanral for the e-tolls. Finance MEC Lebogang Maile says the first installment of 3.8 billion was paid today.
When people were paying for e-tolls, remember it was legal, it was not illegal. And they were paying because they were utilizing the service. So they will not be paid back because it was not illegal. Their money was not collected illegally by government. So I think that will be the answer to that.
The government says the procurement of renewable energy from independent power producers will prioritize energy affordability.